All right, this is entitled Mother's Day number 19. And I start it with a little haiku. Candy apple to match her lips and her dress. Mom's red Corvair. If a poem is a snapshot, then this is an overexposed roll of film. I have a trellis of pink roses tattooed on my arm to remind me of the pilot light sparkle in her faded green eyes, and the way she would grin from ear to ear as we played Uno on the dining room table next to a shelf where there was always an old jelly jar filled with water and clippings from her flower bed. She loved her pink roses most of all. So beautiful there, soft petal after soft petal quietly falling away in the inevitable wilt. February 17th, 1998 was a Monday, and it was the cold Pittsburgh morning I lost her to a morphine-induced fever. The eternal unspoken, the infinite invisibility of tethered freedom. After someone dies, everything about their life is suddenly fiction, because the things they leave behind for us to find raise questions only the dead can answer. And waist deep in the fallout from a generation of nuclear mother-daughter friendships, when my mom died, I found out I really didn't know her at all. Our family tree from a Depression-era Wheeling, West Virginia, seems to bear an abundance of fruitful secrets, with the perfume of each bloom putting the toxic in intoxication. In her second marriage, 1970s suburbia was a game of hide-and-seek being played with time, and she was a lily left by the ghost in the graveyard. I once watched her break down in tears when Janis Joplin's voice sang Bobby McGee from a transistor radio she was listening to while weeding her garden on a Saturday afternoon. My father had to help her to bed. Nobody said a word to me. I don't know when her spirit was broken, but it happened long before I ever came along. By the time I was 11 years old, I had a 7-year-old half-nephew. I was midway through a decade of being secretly molested by a family member, and my mother had a cliche for a kitchen with a pantry full of Tupperware that needed to be burped and a drawer full of pastel-colored pills that Mick Jagger sang about. A textbook working-class outline of dysfunction. Clark Club on Friday nights. That weird phase where they tried to sell Amway. Highballs with crushed ice. Xavier Hollander books in the bedside table drawer. A tablecloth for every season. And a brand new $29,000 ranch-style home with plenty of closet space for storing hand-me-down skeletons. She was a waitress at a Greasy Spoon, married to the telephone man, and of course, there was that fucked up affair. I used to think my mother deserved better than my father, the way I tend to think my husband deserves better than me. But love and marriage don't work like that in worlds as workaday as our own. Maybe the reason I write so much about shadows is because I think I know what it feels like to be one born in a house that swallows you up, with a mom pretending so hard to be sunshine, hoping that will get us all to go outside and play, so she could sweep up the ashes of the things that can't be unlearned. 3 years was a long time for me to pretend she was a shooting star, but I do what I have to when I run out of wishes, in spite of myself. I may be a 5.5 foot tall warehouse of her weaknesses, but I'm also a little antique storefront full of her virtues too. What else is a kid supposed to expect from a parent? I mean, other than all the things that come to be known as hindsight, who get dragged in the world without having anything to do with that. I'm just lucky I get to feel lucky, because as a booby prize for giving me life, she showed me laughter is the reason for living. That's when I felt closest to her, laughing until we snorted, shamelessly. The uncontrollable reflex of a laugh that takes off like a runaway train, rib-crushing, knee-buckling, face-burning, tear-spilling laughter that takes up so much space in the room it completely blocks out every sliver of darkness. The kind of laughter that cures. The kind of laughter that works like a skeleton key, the ultimate liberation. When I was 17, my mother told me, never have kids. And while I believe that was the single greatest piece of advice that woman ever gave me, I think the most important thing about life I learned from my mom is that no matter how depressed a woman feels on the inside, she shines like the most beautiful light in the world, the harder she laughs.